All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Alan Levy, and I'm the chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery at the University of Miami. And I'd like to invite or welcome everybody to the University of Miami Neurosurgery virtual sub-I. I'm going to start by introducing the program, and then my colleagues will follow in sequence, talking about the different aspects of the program, including the different divisions. And then we'll finish off with Dr. Komatar, who's our program director, and have a Q&A. You'll also hear from the residents of the program. So the Department of Neurosurgery has a really rich history. It's probably not as old as some of the programs in the Northeast, but Medical School started in 1924. The first neurosurgery program in the state of Florida was that of the University of Miami. The Miami Project started in 1985, which you'll learn is one of the big research arms of the program. It continued to grow over time and is now one of the largest neurosurgery programs in the country, centered around two main adult hospitals, the University of Miami Hospital and Jackson Memorial Hospital. If you want to read more about the history of the program, there was a publication in 2017 that goes into the details. I would argue we have the best faculty in the country. Some of the top names that you will see in neurosurgery work at the University of Miami, and we'll get into a little bit more of the details, but we have essentially 20 faculty. And when you look at some of the strengths of the program, is that the faculty have often trained in different residency programs. So this is a map of the United States, and here we have labeled where some of our faculty did their residency. And you can see it really covers the map of the US, Canada, and outside of North America. And that allows different views of how to do things. There are some programs in the country that just hire their own residents, and I think it becomes very univision, so to speak. So you will get a vast and different experience. Another strength of the program is simply the location of the main hospitals and research labs. So the people who get into the program, residents who get into the program, our main area where we congregate from an academic point of view is the Lois Pope Life Center, and you can see that in where it is in this in the medical center. It's a building that has the administrative offices, but 6 floors of labs and our conference center. And then the University of Miami Hospital is across the street. It's a large academic hospital, and you'll hear more about it, but covers the gamut of neurosurgery. And then kitty corner to that is Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is our county hospital, and it's a large trauma center. It has the Pediatric Holtz hospital within it. And again, it's within walking distance of the other hospitals. And then our VA hospital is across the street from that. And it's, again, one of our busy adult hospitals that the residents rotate in. So you can see how close everything is to each other. And then finally, we are super excited about the opening in this year of the Lynn Rehabilitation Center, which is part of Jackson, and where a lot of our patients will go after longer surgeries or trauma. And then finally, we have Nicholas Children's Hospital, that's just 10 miles to the south, where most of the pediatric neurosurgery takes place. Again, this next slide is on geography and really trying to speak about how geographically privileged we are in this program. So this is a map of the US showing that Florida has 21.5 million residents. It's now the 3rd most populous state in the US, and it's only growing. And this is a map of Florida showing the four main neurosurgery residency training programs, which are Mayo, UF, USF, and us. And you can see we're in South Florida, and that we have the 5 most populous counties right around us. So it's a great source for drawing patients. The state of Florida itself only has 4 training programs. New York has 12 training programs, and it has less population. And you can see just by location that we are the pathway to the States from the Caribbean and South America. Hence, we see a lot of international patients through that route. Some other statistics: we're the 5th largest U.S. medical center. Ryder Trauma Center is a level 1 trauma center. Neurosurgery is highly ranked in U.S. News and World. Miami Children's is ranked number 13 in U.S. News and World. Neurosurgery is ranked number 10 in Blue Ridge NIH funding, and we're ranked about number 10 in neurosurgical departmental academic productivity. In terms of operative numbers, it's a very busy operative program. You'll hear more about it, but we do over 5,000 cases a year, and that number has been growing from year to year. We have terrific physician extenders in all of our hospitals, and this is a pictorial of some of our PAs and our nurses who helped in the different hospitals that take some of the scut work, so to speak, from the residents so they can focus on clinical activities, including clinic and surgery, and not necessarily take as much of the scut work that might be on the floor. I'll just briefly talk about the various divisions. We have a large brain tumor program, really one of the busiest in the country, and you can see the number of brain tumor cases has been escalating year after year. The UMBTI, or Brain Tumor Initiative, is a big part of that, and it includes both clinical and basic science research, and you'll be hearing more about that. We have a terrific vascular and skull place program led by Dr. Jacques Marcos, with a high volume of very complicated cases and a terrific collaboration with many of our ENT skull-based surgeons. And we're very proud of the opening 2 years ago of our skull-based laboratory, which is located in the medical school on the 8th floor, where there are 12 working stations with a terrific microscopy. And we've had a number of different teaching sessions, both in cranial and spine and peripheral nerve in this area. A great way to practice your skills before you get into the operating room. It's called the Keynes Lab. A phenomenal endovascular program, which you'll hear about from Dr. Peterson, includes Dr. Peterson, Stark, and Yavagal, doing some of the most complicated endovascular procedures and some of the most cutting-edge endovascular procedures. You'll hear from Dr. Wang, who leads our spine program. Again, one of the busiest spine programs in the country, and incredibly innovative with where you learn the latest surgical techniques. Dr. Jagged runs the functional program. Dr. Ivan also is very involved in the epilepsy program, so that is also very well represented in the program. We have a very strong peripheral nerve surgery program led by myself and Dr. Cote, and soon to take on one of our residents to help with that effort. We have a fantastic neurotrauma critical care program that is run by Dr. O'Phelan, and we do see a lot of trauma both at our level 1 Ryder Trauma Center, but also down at Jackson South, which is a level 2 trauma center. You'll hear from Dr. Ragab about the pediatric neurosurgery program that's run primarily out of Miami Children's, but also at Holtz Children's Hospital. And again, because of volume and expertise, sees a terrific number of pathologies. The academic profile of the program has increased exponentially over the years, as measured by the number of resident publications and papers that have focused on things like H-index of the people who are writing out of the program. It is always difficult to do research, and if you can make it easier in any way, you will be more successful. And we have a terrific amount of regulatory support for things like IRB submissions, IACUC submissions, and dealing with all of the paperwork that goes along with research. And we have excellent publications support, both from Linda and Roberto Suazo, who helps with our graphics and does many things to help the program move forward in that realm. These are just some pictures of front page publications that have happened over the last 6 or 7 years. As time goes on, I don't actually have room for all of the front covers from members of the department. And a lot of these, or all of these, were helped by Roberto Suazo. I'll talk a little bit about research. Dr. Dietrich is the scientific director of the Miami Project. The Miami Project's been around for 35 years. It's focused on spinal cord injury, but there's lots of research going on in all aspects of neurotrauma, even areas such as MS. And here are the members of the faculty of the Miami Project. The terrific thing about it is it's basic scientists, but you'll see a number of our clinicians are incredibly involved in the Miami Project, doing both basic science and clinical research. And we have burgeoning programs as part of the University of Miami Brain Tumor Initiative, and a very strong cerebrovascular research program led by Dr. Stark, and you'll hear more about that as well. This is our ranking in NIH funding, and some of our faculty and basic science who have research grants that are NIH funded. And something that we're really proud of is the R25 research program, which is a endeavor by the NIH to fund specifically neurosurgery and neurology programs so that residents can get a minimum of 1 year of NIH-based funding during their residency. And again, it's a terrific part of this program. The residents are often, obviously, the heart and soul of the program, and you'll hear the residents' perspective as well. But it is so important. We feel it's very important that they're nurtured, taken well care of. And Ingrid Menendez and Aziza Nam, who's coming on, do a great part in helping to make their life a little easier. And we obviously are very collaborative. We like to play hard and work hard. And this is just one microcosm of the play hard part of it. Dr. Komatar started the New York charity softball tournament back almost 20 years ago, and we've participated in that since 2010 and have been successful in winning it twice. So that is sort of an overview of the entire program. I wanted to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Michael Wang, who's the Chief of Neurosurgery at the University of Miami Hospital. He's the Division Chief for Spine, as well as the Spine Fellowship Director. Again, nice speaking with you, and I hope you consider the University of Miami as a potential neurosurgical training program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Levy. I just want to echo all those great comments, and I apologize that you guys are in this situation where we're unable to, how do you say, see you personally, and we look forward to meeting you in person. Sub-Is are such an integral part of this whole process, but I do want to congratulate you guys on choosing the most interesting and exciting specialty, and I'm not at all biased about that. This is a wonderful place to train. I trained at USC and did my fellowship here with Dr. Levy and Dr. Green. I came back to work here because it's such a wonderful and collegial environment. So let me just start by saying that I'll just talk about spine. And when I was in your shoes, I thought that this is what I'd be doing. All manner of of, if you will, brain surgeries. And the reality is that for the last going on 20 years, I've basically only been doing spine, and spine has so many different interesting facets. At your home medical school, maybe you see it, maybe you don't. This is, as Dr. Levy said, one of the largest spine centers in the world. And there is a reason for that. Everybody will make claims to you, right? Because they want you to rank them highly and attend their programs. We actually have a very strong legacy of spine leadership. The approximate 3 chairs of neurosurgery are spinal surgeons, and the approximate 2 chairs of orthopedics are spinal surgeons. So we're very collaborative, and we have a great relationship with them. So in spine, there are so many elements to look at, whether it be, as you know, degenerative diseases, but also infection, trauma, neoplasia, and deformity. And you may not think too much about this stuff now, but understand that 70% of all neurosurgical practice in America, anyhow, is spine. So 70% of all the cases of all the specialists are spine surgeons in the world. So of course, it's absolutely essential wherever you go, whether you choose to be a spine specialist or not, that you get adequate training in this type of disease process. And if you look at what we do, whereas all of the spine faculty here can basically do any spine case, we have ourselves super subspecialized into areas that we have tremendous interest in terms of research and clinical practice. And if you have questions about that, feel free to engage any of these attendings, because it is really quite interesting to get into. As far as the service lines, the 3 main areas will be Jackson, University of Miami Hospital, and I should put the VA here. The VA hospital is now being run by Timur Yurikov and Ram Benvenista. They are doing a fantastic job to get you the kind of spine experience you need at that facility as well. This gives you some concept of volume. Now, I know wherever you go, people are going to talk about how busy they are. But let me just say that at our hospital system, just on the main campus, we'll be running up to 15 or 17 rooms a day for first starts. The volume that occurs at this institution will challenge or rival any institution in the country. Probably only centers in China could do bigger volumes than what we do. And whether that be in terms of consultations for the emergency room, the operative cases, or clinic volume. So all of those are absolutely critical. And of course, that's what you want as a resident. You want not only the clinical experience, but also the substrate with which to write papers and do research and to get fully trained across the breadth of pathologies. And we will be the first center in the world soon to have all 3 spine robots, the first center in the world. I'll just emphasize that for emphasis, if you will. And I'm going to spare you the stuff that you can find on PubMed, all that's published. Dr. Levy covered it nicely. I think the opportunities here are literally limitless. Ian Kojigas has been running the research arm for the medical students. And I want to say that Ian's got over 40, maybe 50 of the medical students working now in our department, which is absolutely, when you think about it, a phenomenal penetration for a relatively medium-sized medical school. This shows how this lays out in terms of what you would be doing in terms of residents, fellows, and nurse practitioners. You can see, just like Dr. Levy said, there's a lot of nurse practitioner support to handle patient care. A lot of, as he said, the scut work. They're wonderful, delightful people. They don't compete with you at all in terms of educational content. They don't really come to the operating room, which is good for all of you. And if you think about what's interesting, so spine here is not just an economic engine. It's not just something to pay the bills. If you talk about interesting cutting edge aspects of spine, all the faculty are involved in these various elements, giving, of course, you not only the expert training you need for when you finish, but also to pique your curiosity if you want to specialize in the area or publish or become well known around the world, because we know that you guys are the future. I'm quite old myself now. You guys will be bearing the torch for the future of neurosurgery. So in summary, I say spine care and spine surgery is a major service line. This reflects the local population, which is the elderly population, as well as the very unique institutional history at It's only made possible with the infrastructure, as Dr. Levy indicated, and we are definitely accelerating to the future. And these are just some pictures from our service line showing how this is really a very, very collaborative place. People like to get together socially, and it's not just a place to work, it's a place where we treat others as family. I'm going to put a shameless plug in for our Neurosurgery podcast. We've had on Dr. Levy twice, Dr. Komatar twice, Dr. Green, Dr. Ragib, Dr. Stark, and many others. So if you want to know what's going on here, that's another angle with which to approach it. So I do want to thank you for your time and attention. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and thank you for your interest level. Please do not be shy. Please type into the Q&A or chat sessions so that we can answer live with you as well.
Okay, hi, Jacques Morcos here. Can you hear me? You can hear my, okay, great. I will talk to you about the skull base program, and again, welcome, as well as the open cerebrovascular program. As you're gonna hear repeatedly, we are indeed a high volume tertiary referral center regionally, nationally, Latin America, and internationally for cerebrovascular and skull-based diseases, among all the other specialties you've heard about. We have indeed a very firm commitment to clinical research and educational missions. You can see beautiful Miami there in your top left and our medical complex. Skull base and open vascular, you can see, is a symbiosis. Now, of course, as you will see in a minute, some of us are interested in skull base only, some of us in open vascular, and you will hear a lot about our spectacular endovascular. I would just focus on the open vascular. You can see all the subspecialties that you have to interface with. Stroke neurology, endovascular on the CV end, in skull base, ENT, oculoplastic, neuro-ophthalmology, neuroendocrinology, and radiation oncology. And as I will show you, we are blessed with excellence all around this, this program. It is indeed a symbiotic, not a parasitic relationship. Where does open CV and skull base intersect? Just to give you some examples, where does CV help? Skull base is, for example, balloon test occlusion of the carotid artery, pre-op tumor embolization, intra-op repair, bypass of injured arteries and veins during tumor resection, microvascular skills in dissecting, manipulating, and respecting the brain. The other way around as well, skull base helps open vascular in appreciation of the anatomy, in designing the approaches, and it's a toolbox. So you will find, to be honest, very few programs that can offer you excellence in those two subdisciplines. And that's very important for you if eventually you'll be interested in that field. Whether you want to do a brainstem cavernoma, which is a vascular case, you need to understand the skull base approaches for it. In this case, for example, the far lateral approach, or whether you're going to use a skull base approach to approach a complex vascular lesion, such as this basilar aneurysm, or deal with the carotid artery at the base of a tumor, or exenterate a cavernous sinus. So having expertise in both and having people who can deal with both things, very important. Talking about the people, of course, what makes this place are the people, as you will hear about. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Director of Cerebrovascular and Skull-Based Surgery. And what do I think I bring to this program? And I've been here 25 years, and any program you choose to go to, of course, the faculty needs to be able to open up the doors for you for organized neurosurgery, if that's you're interested in, or other avenues. So I've been chair or past president of the CV section, the North American Skull-Based Society, the SUN. I'm intimately involved with AANS, the WFNS, and the Skull-Based Task Force for Skull-Base, and that's going to be a new initiative. So I'm quite very embedded in organized neurosurgery, and of course, I try to get our own residents and fellows and junior faculty involved in these programs if they are interested. For the open cerebrovascular program, well, there are 3 of us. Besides myself, you will see Eric Peterson and Bobby Stark in a second. I am not an endovascular person, but they both are duly trained for open and endovascular. And we have an endovascular neurologist you will hear about later, Dilip Yavagal, and 8 stroke neurologists. I'm so happy and delighted to have these 2 folks as my partners, and you're going to hear about them in a second. Bobby trained at UVA and has been with us about 3 years and is Director of Endovascular Research. And Eric has been with us several years, having trained in Washington, in Seattle, and runs the endovascular program here. And again, you're going to hear from them, but the nice thing is that they're duly trained and can do open or endovascular. The skull-based program is huge. 3 neurosurgeons, 5 neuro-otologists, 9 head and neck surgeons, 3 rhinologists, 6 oculoplastic surgeons, 4 neuro-ophthalmologists, endocrinology, radiation oncology, neuroradiology, and neuropathology. First, let me start with neurosurgery. Mike Ivan, who's been here 5 years, is a phenomenal surgeon who is not only going to introduce for you the brain tumor program after me, but is also a quintessential skull-based surgeon and also has interest in epilepsy surgery. Mike and I have been doing the skull-based surgery for the last several years together. He also is director of the research at the UMBTI you've heard about a second ago. He trained at UCSF, did a fellowship with Rick Komotar, and we recognized his brilliance and we thought he should join us, and I'm glad he did. Within the last year, Carolina Benjamin joined us from NYU. Carolina did a fellowship with Chandra Sen, 6 months in skull base, and then 6 months radiosurgery with Doug Gonziolka. Carolina is helping us with the Jackson North program, but also has an interest in skull-based surgery, and she is director of that Keynes lab that you just saw, and I'm going to show you again. I cannot talk about skull-based surgery without talking about those disciplines we just talked about. This is a huge ENT department. You can see how many faculty they have there, and we intersect with almost all of them. They do have in ENT in one of the busiest programs in ENT with north of 5,000 cases a year. And I'm just going to show you the pictures, and we of course all know them by first name, last name. We work with these people day in, day out. This is head and neck surgery. This is neuro-otology. This is rhinology. This is endoscopic skull-based program, of course, which is possible because of a collaboration with rhinology and several of us in neurosurgery who do pituitary and other skull-based work from a rhinological point of view. I'd like to remind you that part of the University of Miami is Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, and phenomenally has been #1 hospital in ophthalmology in the US, I believe 17 years in a row. This is, again, not surprisingly, their last award here. And we work intimately with neuro-ophthalmology. Those are the 4 folks in neuro-ophthalmology we work with. Oculoplastic surgery, and I'm only putting the pictures of the people who actually work with us in neurosurgery. There are many more that may not interact with us. Neuroendocrinology, 2 phenomenal people, Atil Karji and Alejandro Ayala for our pituitary program, and these are the radiation oncologists who work intimately with us for gamma knife and hyperarc radio surgery. Our skull-based program is only one of 16 that gets the highly coveted team honor roll from the North American Skull-Based Society. And you can see us there with in the presence of other programs. That's this year. Conferences. Well, there are lots of conferences. There are weekly, well, pre-COVID times, and we still continue to do that. Every Tuesday morning, my endovascular colleagues, mostly Bobby Stark, runs a vascular conference, 7 to 8. And in the evening, we have, I will tell you about it in a second, what I've called MOBS, Multidisciplinary of the Base of the Skull conference for 2 hours. Now, since COVID hit, Mike Ivan had the brilliant idea of starting a virtual Zoomposium that has picked up steam. He started it in April and called it the Miami Global Brain Tumor Zoomposium. I picked up his idea and started a Cerebrovascular skull-based Zoomposium on Thursdays. And I encourage you, if you haven't seen one of the Wednesday or Thursday Zoomposium, we do it every week. with fantastic speakers, and we have many months ahead of us of planning and programming. I'd like to talk about MOBS, the multi-specialists of the base of the skull conference. I started it about 10 years ago. This was in 2011 when we celebrated our first year. And I honestly don't think there is anything like it in any neurosurgical program around the country, not to the extent that we have. Look at the number of people who attend, look at the subspecialties that come to the table, and you will see the fertile ground for research, for discussion of complex skull-based cases and planning the treatment. And so many projects have come out of this weekly 2-hour conference with the input of all these fantastic people. This is, for example, the Wednesday, Mike Ivan's Wednesday Symposium next week will be, you can see Juan Carlos from Stanford will be talking. The next Thursday, the one I'm running will be, for example, Shekhar and Ramina talking about cavernous sinus surgery. And that's a program for the coming Thursday programming. Education, Kane's Lab. Again, I'd like to reiterate how delighted we were that this cadaveric lab opened up 2 years ago. It can be expanded into this MISTI lab for large conferences. Otherwise, those 12 stations you saw are available to you, future residents, fellows, and so forth. Some of the courses that run there, beautiful surgical instruments. Actually, we purchased brand new. They're honestly almost better than some of our operating room instruments. They're spectacular. Clinical, I don't want to waste your time telling you how many numbers and how many volumes. We're extremely busy. Several hundred cases, each of us, in skull base, open vascular, in skull base, every endoscopic or open complex skull base approach you can think of, we do in large quantity. There is no single clinical surgical approach you can think of that we do not do here. We work together, multiple teams, radiosurgery, gamma knife, and hyperarc. I will talk about some innovations in research in a second, that particularly my partner Mike Ivan is doing. Open vascular. This is probably one of the few centers that still does advanced open cerebrovascular surgery, be it complex aneurysm clipping, bypass surgery. I do about 35 of those a year, as the several centers do less and less of this, complex brainstem cavernomas, AVMs, and so forth. We really do have a very balanced approach to the whole cerebrovascular field, as you will hear from my endovascular colleagues. We have, of course, lots of experience, acoustic neuromas, cavernous sinus tumors, clival chordomas, petrosal approaches for petroclival meningiomas. Mike Ivan just 2 days ago did a very nice Kawase approach, for example, for a cavernoma. You know, many of these things are almost rarities in other programs. To us, these things are weekly routines. I still clip the occasional basilar tip aneurysm. So of course that, for example, that volume has appropriately dropped down, but we still do some complex clippings that you may not see at all in other programs. AVMs, very proud of our bypass experience for moya ischemia and others. Research, I'd like to, I can talk a lot about that, but really I'd like to highlight the vestibular schwannoma research program, and that's mostly to Mike Ivan and his colleague Christine Din from Neurotology. They tag team, and they're doing beautiful basic science work in this as well as clinical work. And this is some of the product of this clinical work. And actually, Christine received the award from the North American Skull Base Society, along with Mike, to continue this work. Again, you can check this out online. And that's that group. Some other recent projects, we've shown endoscopic and open resection of anterior skull base meningioma, work of Stephanie Chen, one of our fantastic residents. We put the University of Miami and UPMC series together, about to be published. Angela Richardson, our finishing chief resident, looked at large and giant acoustic neuromas. She also is putting together ischemia moya bypass study. Mike and Ron Benveniste have started the DIAMOC study for CSF leaks. Mike is interested in atypical grade 2 meningiomas, and I can go on and go on. Carolina, who joined us, has many interesting ideas to start as well as build on what she's done at NYU on the work on chordoma of Chandra Sen and her interest in radiosurgery as well. Lastly, I'm very proud of the fellowship we have in combined skull base and open vascular. And I'm very proud of those people. I and others have trained over the years. The numbers you can see in the top left is the year of their training, starting with Nikita back in 1996. Yearly, we take one fellow. I am sure you recognize faces and names because they are leaders in other programs that you may be visiting. Finishing up with Samir Sur, who's going to Georgetown, who just finished his fellowship with us here. And the question whether a fellow interferes with residency training, talk to our resident, and you will absolutely see that it is an integral part. It's enriching to both parties. It does not interfere at all with anybody's training. As a matter of fact, it reinforces both. It's a win-win situation, and we're booked several years in advance getting fellows. And to be honest, it is this fellowship is only one of 3 in the country that offers combined open vascular and skull base. There are, of course, many skull base fellowships. There are many open vascular, but this combination, there are only 3, and I firmly believe ours is absolutely the best. What makes our program special? Volume and complexity of clinical cases, talent and expertise of varied faculty of different ranks, recognized internationally, extent of collaboration with other disciplines seen absolutely nowhere else, but mostly our current residents. Their drive, their passion, their competence, their esprit de corps is second to none in this country. If I've left anything undiscussed, feel free to email me. And I am new to Twitter, so here's my Twitter handle, still trying to learn the ropes and try to figure out what Instagram even means. Thank you for your attention. Oh, I'd like to now introduce Mike Ivan, who I am delighted to see will now talk about the brain tumor program. Mike, all yours.
Thank you so much, Jacques. That was a great presentation, and thus far it's always impressive to learn about all the areas of our department every year as we do this. And you know, the brain tumor program I'll talk about next, and just like all the other programs, I have to say that, and I'm obviously biased, that I think our brain tumor program is by far one of the best in the country, and for many reasons. And the first reason is that, and just introduce myself again, if you didn't catch it already, Mike Ivan, I'm one of the brain tumor, skull base, and epilepsy surgeons, and also the director of research for our brain tumor program. So it all starts with our faculty, and I think Dr. Marcos already talked about a bunch, but just to kind of complete the faculty, I mean, we have legends in our department, and people that would, you know, be chairman in many places. And then I'll start with the first page here. We have Dr. Hiros, who's really been one of the grandfathers of skull base, wrote the first paper about far laterals, and continues to be active in our neurosurgery residency program, and that he's there every morning for us discussing complex brain tumor, skull base, and vascular cases for an hour with the residents, and the resource is just invaluable. And what that's done is that it also brings the rest of the faculty, the fellows, the residents all together every morning to have these discussions and debates that are really critical for the decision making that you need to do both as a resident and in your career. Dr. Marcos, obviously, you know, he said so much already, and he's just a world-renowned and legend cerebrovascular skull-based surgeon. I mean, there's really things that we're doing here in the skull-based world that you wouldn't see anywhere else in the world, and we thank him for being here and being such a great educator and running the program for us. Dr. Landy has also been here for more than 25 years. Running our radiation and stereotactic radiation program, where we have a very large volume of cases that go through Gamma Knife and Linic, and he supervises all that and the education for the residents. We also have Dr. Komatar, who you've heard from already. He's a professor and program director and director of the UMBTI. Extremely high case volume, doing over 750 cases a year, and just an outstanding educator for the residents. Has won the Educator Award multiple times. Dr. Ben Veniste, he operates at the VA in Jackson Hospital, brain tumor specialist, and just actually, absolutely pleasant to work with. And Dr. Benjamin, who's one of our newest recruits, as Dr. Morco said, brain tumor and skull-based specialist. And I think what's important about this group is that we all have a different background, and that, just looking at this page, Rick trained at Columbia and then did a fellowship at Sloan Kettering. Ron was at Mount Sinai and then did the MD Anderson Fellowship. Carolina is trained at NYU and then stayed on for an NYU fellowship. And then I trained at UCSF and did a fellowship here at Miami. And I think that difference of background is huge in a program, because the residents really get to pick and choose and understand that there are different approaches to attack, especially brain tumors. Every brain tumor is different, and everything is a different puzzle that you have to approach in a different way. And unless you hear from different perspectives and different ideas, it's hard for you to really understand the positive and negatives. And so we hope that as you go through the program, you get to pick really the pluses of each one of us, and to make you the summation of all of our good points and not our bad points. And so that when you graduate, you should be better than any of us that are training with you. So as stated before, the clinical volume here in Miami is just unremarkable, especially with the brain tumor program. Our numbers of surgeries continue to rise each year. We're now consistently over 1,000 a year of brain tumors, which puts us in the top 5 as far as clinically heavy volume centers for brain tumors in the country. And that really is, as Dr. Levy said in the beginning, due to the location in our large catch valley. Not only is it the most densely part of Florida, and we capture all of South Florida, but we're getting the Bahamas, U.S. Virgin Islands, Latin America, and even South America, the most advanced cases that they're not able to treat down there come to us. So just looking last week, I looked at the team of brain tumor surgeons. Even with the COVID crisis going on, we had 24 brain tumor surgeries last week at just University of Miami Hospital and Jackson Hospital. I didn't look at everybody's films, but just in my clinic and in my cases in the last 2 weeks, these are just some of the pathologies that I've seen in the last 2 weeks. Ranging from skull base to large deep glioblastoma cases, huge giant pituitary tumors, fibrous dysplasia involving the entire skull base, endovascular sac tumors. These are just things that you see maybe once a year in other places, and this is just what we're seeing on a weekly basis, as Dr. Morcos has said, and the gliomas as well. And learning by sheer numbers is really important, especially in residency. I'm a firm believer that it's better to see a lot to know more than rather than just to see one of those cases and read a lot about it. That's just particularly how I learned, especially as a resident. And so if you're like that, this is definitely the program for you. Obviously, just as the skull-based department, the brain tumor program is a multidisciplinary organization, and it really leads with the Cancer Center. So the Cancer Center, Sylvester, just was named NCI designated. And so what does that mean? Well, it means it's one of 100 cancer centers in the country that have that designation by the NIH. It allows us to have additional funding for research, allows us to be a part of more national clinical trials, and as well as national reputation. There's a lot of key elements that go into being an NCI cancer center, and we've obviously been able to check the boxes on all of those. So they have a tremendous amount of support for our brain tumor program, as well as all the other departments that are involved that I'll talk about next. We do brain tumor surgery at all the hospitals, so University of Miami Hospital, Jackson Hospital, Jackson South, the VA, and even now we're starting to do brain tumor surgery at Jackson North, and so there's plenty of opportunities to get involved. If you want to learn more, you could obviously, we have a website at the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center website. It's under the University of Miami Brain Tumor Initiative. The web address is above. The top 3 successes that we talk about, as I already said, was the fact that we're so busy, national reputation. We have our own neuro-oncology fellowship, where we have 2 fellows right now. We've had that for the last several years, brain tumor fellows. One has In the last several years, we've had one enfolded fellowship, which I think we'll go over later in the residency program. So PGY 4 or 5, which will do an enfolded fellowship. And then we have one external fellow that comes in as a PGY 8 to do the fellowship. So we have 2 this year. They've been phenomenal. The program's been going on now for 6 years, and it's been really helpful for both the residents and the fellows. Personally, as being at a residency program that didn't have a lot of fellows, and we started to get them as I was a chief resident, I was a little hesitant on the advantage of fellows as being a resident in a neurosurgery program, but I could tell you that both experiencing the transition from a program that went from no fellows to many fellows to now being in a program that has many fellows, there's nothing but advantages. The fellows are only there to kind of learn a different aspect of neurosurgery than as a resident you are. They add to the educational and research components, and they also bring in a different perspective from their program that you can help learn further. And then, we are a very kind of open-minded group to new technologies, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit further. So weekly, we have a neuro-oncology tumor board conference. As far as just some of the team, we have 2 world-class neuropathologists that are dedicated to just our brain tumor program, and they have actually applied for a fellowship that we hope will be starting next year, where that will add to the research in the neuropathology department. We have 3 medical neuro-oncologists with a 4th one to be hired hopefully this summer. They also just started a neuro-oncology fellowship with the first fellow starting this year. 5 dedicated neuroradiation oncologists. Our clinical trial portfolio is typically around 15. And right now with the COVID crisis, it's down to 10 because there's been a lot of funding cuts over the last 2 months. But we hope to get that up to 15 again soon. I'll go through the brain tumor researchers at the end. We have a very large tumor bank where we collect all of our samples. And just a quick query, yesterday I was able to look at our publications, and the brain tumor team, this is really much due to the residents and fellows and on how much they're involved in our research, but over 100 brain tumor publications from University of Miami in the last year, which is just remarkable, and it shows you the opportunities that are available and also kind of the streamlined ability that we have with so much support to do research at University of Miami, that you're able to kind of really focus on the critical parts of these publications, and you don't have to worry about all the formatting and the references and things like that, which could be helped by somebody else. But when you have everybody around you doing research and publishing, this is something that you could accomplish. So I'm not going to go through all the clinical trials, but these are just the 10 that are open right now. They're also on the website if you want to learn more about them, but they're all active. A lot of them are investigator initiated, and we have residents involved, and I'd say more than half of them. As far as innovations that go along with brain tumor surgery, we cover the entire breadth of anything that you could think about with brain tumors. And I wouldn't say we just cover them, we're leading the way. So awake craniotomies, we do more than 250 awake surgeries a year. Minimally invasive brain tumor surgery, I'll talk about. Advanced neuroimaging and neuronavigation. So we just had a brand new MRI installed at University of Miami Hospital. Now, not only can we do fMRI and DTI, but we could also do advanced resting straight MRIs and MR spectroscopy. And we're starting a new clinical trial on kinoptomics with that new MRI by the end of the summer. Endoscopy and neuroendoscopy. So we have 6 people that do pituitary surgery, and I'd say we're just about operating on over 200 pituitary tumors a year. In addition to that, there's about another 75 expanded intranasal surgeries that we do a year with the brain tumor and skull-based team. 5 ALA for fluorescence-guided tumor surgery is available, and as well as vaccine trials. Laser surgery and tubular retractor surgery I'll talk about in a second, and some of the other techniques as well. So, as far as some of the other research that we're kind of leading the way in, and that's really with neuroimaging, we have a really strong neuroradiology department, specifically with MR spectroscopy. We have a clinical trial where we're actually looking at the detection of 2HG, so you can actually tell mutational status of gliomas before we operate on them, as well as looking at intratumor heterogeneity, one of only 3 programs in the country that could do 3D MR spectroscopy. And when I talk about leading the science or leading the way in new techniques in neurosurgery, we go beyond that. So laser surgery has been around for about 5 years, and we quickly took that up as a new platform for treating brain tumors, and have just published the largest single series of over 100 cases. It's now more than 150 cases of brain tumors that were treated with laser. So just an instance of how we try to adapt to new technology as it's available to us. Minimally invasive tubular retractor series, we just published this the other month. Again, largest series by university in that group. Pushing the way for supramaximal resection of gliomas, we take a very aggressive approach, and these are just two articles here. One that got the cover last month in the Journal of Neuro-Oncology talking about non-enhancing gliomas. And then we always look about improving efficiency. It's a great paper done by Angela, who just graduated, looking at how to discharge people faster and more effectively, but yet safer in the way, which is becoming now even more critical during the COVID crisis when we're pressed for ICU beds. So another instance about research and translational research with our brain tumor program. So we trialed a new imaging system last year in our program. Ashish Shah really took the lead, as well as Dan Eichberg, on looking at this system as soon as it came in. And within a week, we had a clinical trial going to look at its efficiency and efficacy in brain tumor diagnosis instantaneously in the operating room. That was published in the JNS last year. And that led to us being part of this large consortium where we use this system with artificial intelligence to detect brain tumors immediately within 30 seconds on sampling in the OR. That was published in Nature last year. So just a great example of how the brain tumor fellow and which was the enfolded fellow and our residents get involved with research. And these are just some images of how this technique works, so that you could, in skull-based surgery and brain tumor surgery, you could get instantaneous biopsies as you go through the tumor and understand where you are. Another area that we're really leading the way with is with augmented reality. Dr. Yurikov, who's one of our spine surgery faculty, and myself just got 2 large grants from Magic Leap on how to use this technology. A lot of departments in the country are using virtual reality, like surgical theater, which is great for being in the classroom and talking about it outside the operating room, but that technology doesn't transform well into the operating room. So this is one technique that we're developing now that we actually could see in the operating room with 3D, how we could see how to get to tumors and how to approach them in a novel way that advances not only your understanding of the case, but also helps with teaching in the operating room itself, not like in the classroom. We talked about the Keynes lab already, but obviously it's critical for any brain tumor surgeon to understand anatomy, and we hold this not only for our residents and fellows at least twice a year, but also in our weekly conferences. We're integrating the labs more and more into our education as well. So just quickly, I know there's a research talk later on by Dr. Shah and Dr. Stark, but the UMBTI Research Laboratory Group is a kind of a composite of all the brain tumor surgeons, neuro-oncologists, and basic science surgeons, basic scientists at University of Miami that are focused on treating really malignant brain tumors and looking at patient individualized therapy. We have one of the largest tissue banks in the country, with over 3,000 samples banked of tissue, blood, and CSF. And all of the laboratories are, again, on the UMBTI website on the Cancer Center. So we have 5 that are really dedicated 100% brain tumor labs. So my lab, which I'll talk about in a second, Dr. Ayed's lab, which really focuses on RNA-seq and Broad domain inhibitors and single-cell sequencing within tumors and glioblastoma. The Wellflow lab, which talks about radiation and how radiation affects brain tumors. The DIN lab, which Dr. Morkos talked about last, deals with vestibular schwannoma treatment, and the Graham lab, which talks about glioblastoma and new therapies for crossing the blood-brain barrier. The collaborating brain tumor lab is where I'd say about at least more than 50% of each one of those PIs are dedicated to brain tumors, are also below, and I'm not going to go through all the details there. Some of the notable papers that have come out in the last year from that group is, most recently was our Nature Communications paper looking at how to do combined therapy for glioblastoma. And I'm not going to go through all the papers, but you guys can read them as you see fit. My laboratory, just a quick plug at the end here, so really focuses on glioblastoma stem cells. All the tumors and glioblastomas that we operate on, we harvest and go to the tumor bank, and then we also select them to go and grow them out, patient-derived tumors in the actual lab themselves. They're difficult to grow, but currently we have 40 stem cell lines growing. They're all characterized with their mutational status, and we make them available to all of our collaborators. My lab is focused really on looking at new therapies for controlling glioblastoma as well as brain tumor invasion. We've developed some new novel 2D assays for invasion, as well as a 3D assay with brain clearing to look at glioblastoma invades, and also dealing with mini brains or glioblastoma organoids, where we have an organoid grow and then use patient-derived glioma stem cells on top of them to see how they invade and into the organoid themselves. And that way you can develop a high throughput screening method. So my lab, I have two dedicated scientists, Anna and Tanya. But just to understand how the research are involved, Dan Eichberg, who's a PGY5, he just got an NIH T32 grant to be in my lab for 2 years, focused on glioblastoma research and looking at two molecular inhibitors, MMP and C97 glioblastoma. Ashish Shah was in the lab with myself and Dr. Kasahara 2 years ago. He was an NIH R25 research fellow. Last year, I had two amazing medical students, Alexa and Long, who were both NREF research fellows. Alexa just joined UCSF as a resident, and Long is in medical school in South Florida here. Yesterday, here's my lab meeting with all of our medical students and undergrads that we have weekly. There's plenty of students that are really involved in the brain tumor program and that are actively engaged with our research program from both basic science, translational, and clinical. So overall, I mean, I think our program is just phenomenal. I don't see any weak points at all. And I think that you would be excellently trained if you came to Miami for brain tumor, for neurosurgery. And this is just a plug. Again, Dr. Morcos alluded to earlier that we do have the Miami Global Brain Tumor Symposium every Wednesdays. Anybody is welcome, medical students, undergrad, residents, fellows, attendings, where we have a short talk on a topic and then kind of some case presentations at the end, and we encourage everybody to join and ask questions. If you have any questions, here's my email, my cell phone. I'm also on social media. If you want to talk to me on there, I'm happy to answer any of the questions. Next up is Dr. Ragged, who's going to be talking about our pediatric division.
Good afternoon, everybody. One of the opportunities in every crisis is to take advantage of what it gives us, and normally the sub-Is rarely get a chance to see or visit us in pediatric neurosurgery. So consider yourselves fortunate, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about the pediatric neurosurgery division. So, our division is made up of two senior neurosurgeons who no longer operate, Glenn Morrison, who's the chair emeritus of the division, and Greg Hornig, who ran the pediatric neurosurgery service at Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. They both are part of the teaching program and attend conferences, and Greg's involved in some of our outreach clinics. There are 4 faculty, including myself. We're fortunate to have Tobin Niazi, who trained in Utah and did a fellowship in Seattle, Heather McRae, who trained at Cornell and did a fellowship in Boston, and Shelley Wang, who trained in Toronto and was our fellow last year and is helping me with the epilepsy surgery. As I mentioned, the service is spread across 2 campuses. This is the UM Jackson campus, and pediatrics is there at the Holtz, which is integral in the Jackson campus. And Heather McRae is primarily responsible for Holtz and the service there, with a very busy delivery service and NICU. When you are a first-year resident, you'll get a chance to spend some time covering the Holtz service along with Dr. McRae. The Jackson campus is about 8 miles from the Children's Hospital. It's about a 25-minute drive, but for some reason, we tend to lose a lot of the residents over here to South Beach. I don't know what happens when they leave Jackson, but there's a delay in getting them to Nicholas. Having said that, when you do finally get there, the campus used to look like this in the 1950s. It was a polio hospital at the edge of the Everglades, and we're fortunate to be part of the new tower, which is now open for the last 3 years. We have a neurology and neurosurgery floor with all private rooms and 12 epilepsy monitoring beds, and an additional 24 regular beds. We have our intraoperative MRI suite and a dedicated neurosurgical operating room and a 2-suite setup, in addition to a non-IOMR room for other cases. We do about 450 operations a year between the 2 campuses, between Nicholas Children's Hospital and the Holtz Hospital. There's a smattering of all sorts of pathology. This is from my clinic over the last 2 weeks. No, not the Calvin and Hobbes one, but the other tumors that you see there. These are the challenges we see in pediatric neurosurgery, and unlike many other disciplines that are pigeonholed in either cranial or spine, we do both in pediatric neurosurgery, although we all have our areas of interest. One of our strengths here in Miami is our epilepsy surgery program, which is one of the oldest pediatric epilepsy surgery programs in the world, which was founded in 1985 by Dr. Morrison and a core group of neurologists. There have been over 1,300 operations on over 1,000 children, all accessible in a database for your use should you be interested in epilepsy. The program's evolved from the original versions where we did skull x-rays to localize the x-rays and implanted most of the children to now more modern imaging systems. The program data is available for use, and what you see there are some volume numbers over the years, the number of patients that require two-stage procedures, and then the age of our patients, most of which are really quite young. So an extraordinary opportunity. In addition, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Anthony Wolf, who's one of the craniofacial surgeons that you see here on your left. He was Tessier's fellow and wrote Tessier's biography, and he has a young associate who's with him for now about 10 years, Chad Perlin, both fellowship-trained craniofacial surgeons. They have extraordinary numbers and have an accessible database as well for anybody interested in craniofacial surgery. One of the things that virtually every applicant asks me about is our work in Haiti. Dr. Green started a program called Project MediShare in the early 1990s, the goal of which was to provide primary care in the plateau. That program has evolved because of the demand for neurosurgical care for children into a hydrocephalus program. And over the years, we've been fortunate to be able to care for over 1,000 children with hydrocephalus with the help of many of our colleagues from across the country. Many of the residents have come with me over the years, and it's a tremendous experience for them. It enriches us in many ways. I think what I'm most proud of is the fact that this is the first neurosurgical trainee in Haiti. He's our third-year fellow. He's a fully trained general surgeon who now operates independently. And if you have the privilege to come to Haiti with us, he'll teach you how to do neuroendoscopy because of his experience. One of the things that we've taken from our experience in Haiti is our opportunity to learn how to apply what we've learned there in a resource-poor environment to taking care of children here in North America. So we applied that strategy of avoiding shunt placement and using endoscopic neurosurgery to avoid placing shunts in newborn babies born prematurely with post-hemorrhagic hydrocephalus. And we've showed a success rate comparable to third ventriculostomy in other international series. Here's one of our residents setting up the endoscope for a case in Miami. So we love having the residents on the service with us. We make them do all kinds of things, like this is Dan Eichmer doing Bring Your Child to Work lectures. We'll teach you how not to screw up shunts. We'll let you have a little bit of fun. But I think the thing we're most proud of are the people that we've recruited into pediatric neurosurgery over the years. And these are the faces of some of those people I've had the privilege to work with who've all gone on to become pediatric neurosurgeons. 3 of them lead their own programs currently, the most recent of which is Joanna Gernsbach, who you see on your right. So thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to meeting you sometime in the future. I'll turn it over now to Eric Peterson, who's going to talk to you about endovascular.
All right. My name is Eric. I'm one of the assistant professors here. I trained at the University of Washington and lucky enough to be able to stay here, and I've had a wonderful journey. So we'll try to keep this short and sweet for you guys. Our practice setup, a couple other people have already gone over this a little bit, but we actually have a number of different people that kind of participate in the endovascular service. Bobby Stark is my junior partner, rock star neurosurgeon, clinician, scientist from UVA. Has a full open and endovascular practice as well as an extensive research practice. Has an R01. I don't know where the guy finds the time, but he manages to kind of do it all. And then I'm an associate professor here. I came here from the University of Washington. I did my endovascular training here actually, and then was lucky enough to be offered an opportunity to stay on after that 7 years ago. And have been here ever since, and I've had a wonderful experience here, both as a fellow and as an attending. We have an interventional neurology partner also, Dilip Yavagal, who's one of the most well-known interventional neurologists in the country. He's one of the first people in the neurology field to do endovascular training. He trained at UCLA, and he's been here well over 10 10 years. We also have a group of fellows. We always have a senior fellow and a junior fellow. This year we have Josh Abacasis, who's from University of Washington, is our senior fellow, and then Vasu is our junior fellow this year. The operative angio suites, as you'll see in a moment, and all of our offices are in a different place than all the other surgical specialties. And they're all kind of in one little location. So it's a really nice family. We have the same cases going over and over, and everyone kind of rotates through and sees everyone's cases and works together. So it's a nice endovascular division. We have a unique setup that Dr. Levy went through already, but just from a vascular stroke referral standpoint, as many of you know, for the endovascular and vascular cases, a lot of them come through the ER, and therefore your referring doctor is the ambulance. So understanding this structure, I think, is important. There's a number of satellite hospitals that all feed into our hospital. And when I trained here, this was it. There was nothing else in town, and everything was kind of transferred to us. Every stroke came to us. And over the last several, 10 years or so, particularly with the stroke revolution, there's been a multiple of other hospitals that have decided that they want to become a comprehensive stroke center. So as you can see, there's a large number of comprehensive stroke centers in the area. But as you can see down by the University of Miami there's really nothing down in that huge downtown area. So regardless of the fact that we have all this local competition, we have so much traffic coming off of the streets that we're able to have a really large volume of strokes and carotids and aneurysms. So I feel very lucky. There's also most of the stuff we end up doing is at Jackson Memorial. This is a large comprehensive stroke center, as was previously mentioned, and most of our vascular has been routed here. And for a variety of reasons, the infrastructure there has been most built out over the last 20 years. And we have a couple of different really nice resources there. The first one is that we have 2 dedicated neuro biplane rooms. A lot of places that I've seen and that I work in other hospitals in the city have only one room, and they share it with cardiology or body interventional. And so it's tough to get time in the suite. It's tough to have techs that don't actually know neuro that well. Or if you're trying to work on a monoplane, it's really just not good medicine. But to have 2 brand new neuro biplane rooms that are dedicated just for neuro is a real gift. And that's, again, a big reason why we do a lot of our work at Jackson. These are 2 of our fellows, Stephanie and Marie Christine. The other thing that's really nice about this system here is that there's no one else here. It's just us. The endovascular division does everything. So it's not just aneurysms and stroke. It's ICAD for stenting for intracranial atherosclerotic disease, tumor embolizations, carotid stenting, vasospasm treatments, subdural embolizations, venous stenting, carotid blowouts. I mean, all the standard stuff that you do as a neurosurgeon, you can double all of that. And there's just a tremendous amount of vascular disease that we treat as interventionalists here that you don't get to do as a regular neurosurgeon. So it's a really broad experience. And from a volume standpoint, it keeps us busy. We've also been one of the early pioneers for the radial approach, as many of you may know. We believe that this is a safer way of doing this endovascular procedures, and we've been able to do a lot of publications on showing that this is something that we think is safer. Our wonderful illustrator has had a lot of different cover articles, and the radial journey is no different, Roberto Suazo. And the other thing that's really nice is that because, as I mentioned, we have everything on the endovascular services within 10 feet of each other, both endo rooms, all 3 of our offices, and the fellows room. It's a really nice collaborative environment. These are a bunch of my fellows that I've trained over the years. That's Stephanie Chen, who's finished up with us and is doing Mike Lawton's fellowship, and then a second endovascular year out in Seattle. Brian Sellings at a comprehensive stroke center just north of us. Sitting down is Justin Kaplan, who finished up his training and went back to Hopkins to be an assistant professor. And then Priyank there is another assistant professor at Rutgers. So it's a very nice hands-on for the fellows, but also hands-on from a teaching perspective. That's how I was trained when I came down here with Ali Sultan and Jacques Morcos, and that's how I really feel that the fellows should be trained. So between the volume and the infrastructure and the resources and the commitment to teaching and hands-on nature of everything, it's a really nice experience for everybody. And of course, when you're finished your cases for the day, you don't have to go out into the freezing cold of some place. You get to do this. So it's a nice setup. Thanks for your time.
So, starting with neurotrauma now, the program is run by Dr. Jagged. He's the medical director for the cranial trauma. and for functional neurosurgery. I'm Joe Gracioli, a fellow in the department. So as you guys heard from Dr. Levy, we're the third most populous state in the country, so there's a lot going down here in different aspects, including trauma. Therefore, we run one of the busiest trauma centers in the country. It's called Ryder Trauma Center. In the Ryder, we have 6 dedicated trauma ORs, 25 ICU beds, and a dedicated floor for neuro rehab for patients that suffered from brain and spinal cord injury. And we're about to inaugurate a building dedicatedly exclusively for the rehab. So we have also substantial funding from different layers of the governmental government. The Ryder Trauma is part of the university campus, in which we admit over 500 cases of TBI patients per year. Around 100 of them end up needing a craniotomy or craniectomy for treatment, and 1/4 of them are victims of gunshot wound. We also have the neurocritical care unit in the Jackson Memorial Hospital, in which 24 beds are dedicated for neurocritical care. We can offer the patients a cutting-edge monitoring, trying to improve the functional outcome, including the Moberg monitor, the CNS, in which we can monitor electrophysiological activity, intracranial pressure, temperature, cerebral blood flow, and microdialysis. We are the only center where military medics can train for up to 6 months before being deployed to combat. We have a wide spectrum of traumatic pathologies, including closed head injuries, penetrating injuries, and a significant amount of the patients end up needing a decompressive craniectomy, as you can see in this reconstruction here. Typically, the PGY2s would run the service for 4 months each. We have 3 per year. Each resident, each PGY2 would usually perform over 30 craniotomies or craniectomies for trauma. We fellows give them support along with 4 attendings. We like to expose the juniors for this kind of procedure early on the training, because they can expedite the technical aspects of doing a fast craniotomy or craniectomy, and to improve the hemostasis skills, which is sometimes very intensive in the setting of the trauma. We have different trials going on in the department as well. I'd like to mention the TRACK TBI, which is an international effort to transform research and clinical knowledge in traumatic brain injury. There are several sub-studies that come from the TRACK TBI. TRACK TBI is a prospective observational study in which we're gathering information from different aspects of the traumatic brain injury to improve the outcome of our patients. The sub-study called SD2 SD stands for spread depolarization. Thanks, Daniel Semano, for the slides. The spread depolarization is believed to play a major role in trauma and spontaneous subarachnoidal bleedings, in which the injured tissue, we call the core of the injury, is surrounded by a penumbra of viable tissue. And we see that this penumbra occasionally in the beginning and more frequently as the disease goes on triggers this massive wave of profound depolarizing events that culminate with intense depletion in the cell's resources, and cellular death is the result of this. So we're gathering efforts trying to detect early the spread depolarization and trying to treat with ketamine or other resources. So in this study, the patients are assigned for 3 arms according to the treatment they need. Again, this is a prospective non-intervention study so far. So the patients that are not operated on, they receive non-invasive. The patients that become a percutaneous monitor are implanted with an intracortical electrode, and the patients that undergo craniotomy or craniectomy are implanted with a strip in order to detect and treat the spread depolarization. And lastly, I'd like to finish the talk talking about this other study that we are running in the department in collaboration with many centers in the US, Europe, and Australia. It's called EpiBios because epilepsy is a major issue in the traumatic brain injury. I don't know if you guys are aware, but from 20 to 30% of the patients that require a craniotomy for an intracranial bleeding end up developing late epilepsy. And so far, there is no way to prevent it. Therefore, this prospective study is gathering information from moderate and severe TBI patients using preclinical data from biomarkers in trauma and epilepsy and trying to correlate with electrophysiological findings, imaging, and molecular biomarkers from CSF and blood samples, aiming to understand epileptogenesis in a more profound way, trying to prevent the development or to improve the treatment of the epilepsy and the long term of the patient care. Well, with that, we finished the part of neurotrauma, and I'd like to pass the baton to my brilliant colleague, Dr. Cahigas, who is about to blow your mind with the efforts we're doing in functional neurosurgery.
Myself. Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us to learn a little bit about the University of Miami neurosurgery program. The functional part of our neurosurgery program is a very exciting part to me because it's really a translational effort of bringing what we know in the basic sciences to patient care. It's programs run by Dr. Jagged and Dr. Ivan, who helps with the epilepsy resections. And Joe is our current functional fellow, and I'm a former functional fellow during my enfolded years and current chief resident. So the functional program in epilepsy is based out of the University of Miami and Jackson hospitals. We do both DBS cases and epilepsy cases at both institutions, and primarily have our inpatient EMU for monitoring epilepsy patients at the University of Miami Hospital. It's a very big collaborative effort between neurology and neuropsychology and neurosurgery. And every week there are multidisciplinary conferences on epilepsy and movement disorders to help with patient selection and guiding each patient's individualized treatment. We have a CAST-approved fellowship. Here are some of the most recent fellows that have done both enfolded and post-residency functional epilepsy fellowship. Most recently, Dr. Christian Theodotou, which just started a few weeks ago. We have access to new robotic technology, which includes the ROSA, which is being used both for tumor biopsies and laser ablations, as well as for our functional stereotactic implantations and epilepsy. And we have really been at the cutting edge, thanks to Dr. Jagged's early adoption of laser interstitial thermal therapy. And the former fellows and I have been involved in a lot of the largest series in terms of laser ablations for epilepsy, which you can find online. This is where we place a catheter stereotactically into an epileptogenic focus, such as the mesial temporal lobe, and below you can see a standard ablation. This is minimally invasive, and unlike open craniotomies, patients get to go home as early as postoperative day 1. This technique, as Dr. Ivan mentioned, is also used in the tumor field. And because Dr. Ivan works with both our epilepsy and with the tumor surgery, there's a lot of crosstalk in terms of the research that is ongoing, whether it's ablating with a single fiber, a deep-seated lesion that would otherwise could be called unresectable, or it would require a lot of morbidity with a large procedure, such as here, seen in the images there, or with targeting a larger lesion that would be very difficult to target with a single laser. We've tried double fibers to get it. We're very involved with the new techniques that are out there to treat epilepsy. These include the responsive neuromodulation, such as the NeuroPace, which you can see at the top right. These are implanted devices this device is implanted in the skull and has leads near the epileptogenic focus, and detects when epileptogenic activity or epileptic activity is detected. It can stimulate the brain almost like a pacemaker and kind of depolarize a particular region to prevent the spread of a seizure. You can see on the bottom left, thanks to our ROSA, we're able to do implantations of the stereo EEG to figure out where someone's epilepsy might be coming from, and then use that to guide further treatment. And we've also been early adopters of the anterior nucleus thalamus DBS for epilepsy. We have a very large program. We've done over 1,000 cases the last 10 years. This is for Parkinson's disease, essential tremor, dystonia, and epilepsy, as I mentioned, with the anterior nucleus of thalamus deep brain stimulation. It would be impossible to do these surgeries without our neurosurgical colleagues. And you can see Dr. Luca here in the bottom left in the medical school with one of our patients, just showing sort of the results of appropriately targeted DBSR. You can see the patient's tremor just completely go away when the device is turned on, and improve their quality of life. Okay. We also do quite a bit of work with pain. You can see Dr. Jagged here doing an ablation for facial pain, and as well as large resections for epilepsy, or a large right frontal lobectomy. And using our stereotactic techniques, we can get to areas which open surgery might cause a lot of morbidity. In case of the brainstem, for example, we can do stereotactic biopsies. The functional program has a great collaboration with the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis. And a lot of the basic science from the Miami has helped drive some of the current research studies, anywhere from modeling how the brain centers control the repair after injury, stimulating areas of the periaqueductal gray after spinal cord injury for neuropathic pain, which was a DoD-funded study, and most recently where we've been working with brain-machine interface that we've developed to help patients with cervical quadriplegia restore some hand and see. There's an article where we were featured in the Washington Post. Here we implant a subclavicular generator in one patient who had had a trauma several years ago. He's 4 years post-trauma, has minimal hand function, and we implanted electrodes over the dominant hand motor area. And we can detect by reading these brain signals across the skin when he's thinking about moving his hand, and use electrical stimulation or an orthosis to open and close his hand. You can see this, the patient here picking up a chip and transferring it to target, and just understand that he's just thinking about opening and closing his hand, and the device is being triggered. This was the first day he used it, so it was a little bit slower to relax so he can drop the chip. But we just deployed this system for home use 3 days ago. Excited about that work. And we have a multi-center collaborations with MIT on this brain-machine interface work. We've established collaborations with NYU to do some work on automatic AI-based detection of interictal activity. And we work with a lab at Johns Hopkins who is helping us with computer-based methods to detect the epileptogenic zone so that we can guide our open surgical resections. Most recently, we started a clinical trial based on some novel work from the Miami Project, understanding the locomotive centers in the brain. Here you can see some of the clinical work where we're able to modulate the speed of ambulation in this pig just by stimulating in an area called the cuneiform nucleus. And we're going to translate some of this work to help patients with freezing of gait and Parkinson's disease to help them improve their quality of life. And we're currently recruiting subjects for this study. So thanks again for your time this afternoon. please reach out to me or any of the other speakers if you have any questions, either by Instagram, Twitter, or via email. And now I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Basil. I'm one of the current PGY6 residents here, and myself, Dr. Leonakis and Dr. Chen are going to be talking to you guys about the program from a resident's perspective. Now, I think the first thing that everybody wants to know is what is the structure of the residency year to year? And so we have that here. You guys can find this online. There's a couple of things to point out here. The first is that all of our rotations are 4 months, and that'll be through your whole residency. And that's really important because it's enough time that you really get to integrate into a service. So when you're on the spine service, you feel like a spine surgeon. When you're on a cranial service, you're dedicated to cranial work. And we find that structure is very beneficial. And the other thing, which has been mentioned already, is that we've moved to a 6-1 structure. We think really this is going to be the future. We want all of our residents to not only have the opportunity to do enfolded fellowships, but for those fellowships to be CAS accredited. And that's why we've changed the structure. So your 6th year will be your chief year, and your 7th year, then you'll be able to go ahead and do your CAS accredited fellowship. So in terms of the year-to-year breakdown, in your junior residency, PGY 1 year, it's broken up into cranial, UMH, and neurology. Cranial is certainly a challenging rotation. That's where you are basically learning how to be a neurosurgeon for the first time. You're managing the entire service, the ICU, you're seeing consults, you're putting in EVDs, doing procedures. So we view that as a very formative period of time. Your next 4 months is at UMH. That's a really great rotation. We have a great nurse practitioner help there. You really get to be in the operating room pretty much every day. This is actually a photo of Dr. Leonakis when he was an intern operating, doing a crania at UMH. And in neurology, obviously where you learn the foundations of neurology, which is critical. In terms of your PGY 2 year, that's broken up into cranial, neurotrauma, and spine. Cranial 2 year is great because the intern really manages the floor in the ICU. Obviously, you help them and you teach them, but you really get to be in the operating room every day, which is amazing. Trauma service, as was mentioned, you're kind of the chief on service as it too, which is a really unusual experience, really a great learning time. Obviously, a very busy trauma service, and then spine. And the nice thing when you're on spine, you have help from the orthopedic surgery intern. So also we'll get to be in the operating room a lot, which is really important. Your PGY 3 year, you go back to UMH for 4 months, which is that's a really great time because as a 3 at UMH, you're heavily involved in the operating room as well as on the floor. The VA rotation, which is also really great surgery. Dr. Yurkov and Dr. Benveniste over there. Dr. Yurkov's doing a lot of endoscopic spine surgery, minimally invasive spine surgery. And then the pediatric rotation, which Dr. Rageb spoke about, has always been one of the favorites of the residents. Your elective time as a PGY 4, you'll have 4 months of endovascular, neuroradiology, and then if you decide to do an enfolded fellowship, you can do it then for the rest of that year or do research. And then again, now you'll do your second true enfolded fellowship in your 7th year. And obviously we have opportunities in pretty much every subspecialty. I won't go over this because we've already talked about our research extensively. We're obviously very proud. Dr. Levy spoke about that. Dr. Higa spoke about that. And we're incredibly productive, and we're only becoming more productive. In terms of senior residency, it's a very nice structure. You certainly work very hard in every year of residency, and senior residency is no different. But as a senior resident, you are an operative resident. So you're spending day in, day out in the operating room, heavily dependent upon. The call burden is very, very light. You're the senior resident on call, Q7 or something to that effect. And you do your core rotations at cranial, spine, and UMH. And this is that was a video of one of our senior residents clipping an aneurysm. This is a senior resident doing a deformity case. Obviously your PGY 7 year, as we mentioned, would be now your enfolded CAS accredited fellowship year. And, you know, this has been talked about before. I don't want to belabor it, but, you know, incredibly busy operative experience, 11 ORs per day, 15 to 20 cases per weekday, and over 5,000 cases per year. So you will not have any shortage of surgical experience while you're here. And then Dr. Leonakis is going to take over now and talk to you a little bit about some of the academic conferences.
Thanks, Greg. My video doesn't seem to be working, so I'll talk you through here, as long as you guys can hear me just fine. You know, Greg was just talking about the great operative experience that we get. In addition to that, the academic conferences really are a cornerstone of the program. One of the big things that Miami has that, you know, really drew me to the program and a lot of us is daily academic morning conferences from 7 to 8 that have been traditionally led by Dr. Hiros. In addition to that, there's grand rounds and multiple afternoon conferences as well. Next slide. So again, like I said, daily morning conferences, 7 a.m. after the patients have been checked into the OR and after rounds have completed. You know, Dr. Hiros has traditionally run these. We look over cases that have come in the night before. We look over interesting cases for the OR that day, and it's an excellent way to teach the juniors and seniors alike. Okay, and again, you know, we talked a little bit about it, but the Keynes lab recently fully established is our anatomy lab for both cranial and spine surgery. You can see here on the left-sided picture, this is a picture of Dr. Basil going through the endoscopic approach to localizing for an endoscopic discectomy through Camden's triangle, teaching the residents this. This is a great opportunity in the lab. We have cadavers in there as well. And then over on the right, we have multiple operating microscopes with cadavers available for dissection. So this is a huge opportunity. We have a lot of sessions that are put on throughout the year for different cranial approaches, and all our faculty get involved, and it's a really excellent teaching experience. Call frequency, switching gears just a little bit. It's not too overwhelming for the PGY2s. That's when you're primarily taking in-house call at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Typically that's Q4, Q5, 24-hour call. When you're a third-year resident and you're on service at the VA, you will also be taking call at Jackson as well. And then for the other hospitals like University of Miami Hospital as well, it's home call typically. As a PGY4, you start to take less. You take maybe 2 in-house calls a month, and then you start doing senior call. And after that, you've basically finished with your junior call in-house responsibilities, and you go on to just taking senior call. And what I mean by senior call is that, you know, if there is an operative case, you come in and do the case. You also act as a secondary support for the junior resident who's on, and that's also for 24 hours. Next slide. Yep. Again, and we have a lot of call rooms available. There's a lot of places to work and get things done while you're waiting for the next thing to come in. We have a work room that's fully equipped with multiple computers, books, etc., and then several call rooms where you can get rest if you need. And then finally, just to kind of round things out, benefits. We won't go too much into this. It's very competitive compared to other programs in the country. But a huge thing for us is that there's no income tax in the state of Florida, so you're getting a bigger piece of that pie. And then again, some academic benefits that other places may not have that we really do well in. You get a $2,000 stipend each from both Jackson Memorial Hospital and the neurosurgery department. So that's $4,000 a year extra on top of your pay that you can put towards, books, lead, loops, equipment, anything like that. And then also food allowances here as well. And I won't go too much over this. Basically all the benefits that you get everywhere, including medical insurance, dental, vision, everything you need to take care of yourself and your family. And now I will turn over to Stephanie Chen, our other PGY6, who will continue the talk here.
Yeah, I'm just going to finish up talking a little bit about residency life. I think one of the hard things about not actually doing a sub-I is not being able to get a feel for the program. But what I want to emphasize here is that it really is a family, and we are a very tight-knit group, and you really can't beat living in Miami. This is just a picture of the beach. It's beautiful day in, day out, and that really is something special when you're working as hard as we do. Just so you know, there's a little something for everything in Miami, a little something for everyone in Miami. There's a number of different neighborhoods. Wynwood is sort of the artsy neighborhood, lots of restaurants, bars, galleries, active nightlife, and there's South Beach, which I'm sure you've all heard of, which has a very big party scene, but also can be beautiful and serene and relaxing, and lots of the residents live there. There's Little Havana, which brings in sort of the Cuban Latin history of Miami, where you can get a lot of great food. And then Coconut Grove, which is where a lot of our residents live and start families, and tends to be a little bit more suburban. Life outside of residency, you will have one, I promise. Like I said, we're a big family. This is the softball tournament we won a few years ago. We do a lot of hanging out outside of the hospital on boats in Wynwood. I think this is a picture of us cheering on Timur at the American Ninja Warrior contest. You see Dr. Wang at the bottom there hanging out with the Spine Fellows. Next. Conferences outside of the hospital, Dr. Ragged leading a journal club at a restaurant, and again, just all of us spending a lot of time together. Every year, Timur does a competition where we do a number of physical and neurosurgical tasks at the start of the year, and we have the Neurosurgery Regatta where all of our attendings bring out their boats. We go to the sandbar. You see Evan hanging out with guns, going to the spa, wedding, Soho House, all the important things, you know. And in terms of getting personal, you know, you will need a support system both in and out of the hospital. And here the residents are very happy. There's 21 total residents. 12 are married and at least one is engaged. There's, I think, 6 that are in serious relationships and 2 are single, but that is subject to change at any point in time, given this is Miami. There are a number of kids and lots of support animals. There is a lot of our residents getting married. You know, this is a huge chunk of your youth that you're spending somewhere, and it's really important to realize that the people that you meet, the people you spend time with, these are lifetime relationships. And of course, the animals and the children that you have are also a big part of it. Greg is really rushing me along here. Life inside of residency, it's a lot of operating and a lot of spending time with each other. Again, you have to love the people that you work with, and you will if you come here. This is some of us operating together, doing labs together, Kane's lab, I think that's an endoscopic lab. Our support staff is awesome. You see Roberto somewhere in the middle with all of our staff, hanging out in the resident room, playing with the Xbox. I don't know what Rick is doing there, eating starfruit.
Starfruit.
Yeah, starfruit, nice. Next. And for all of those who say you won't sleep in residency, you will sleep, just in various positions in various times, most importantly during conferences and grand rounds. So all in all, it's a really great program. Like I said, it's a big family. We want people who are interested in being a part of a team, and we want people who really value supporting each other. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us, contact us. And now I think Dr. Stark, who is one of my mentors and is an awesome researcher and scientist, and Ashish, who is one of our current chiefs, is going to talk to you guys a little bit about research.
Thanks so much. Awesome talks by the residents, rest of the faculty. We'll keep this brief, but just talk a little bit about research. It's too bad that Dr. Dietrich, one of the other directors, couldn't join us today. But my area is primarily open and endovascular. Talking about University of Miami, I think this was extensively gone through today. But this is a massive medical center, many hospitals, but we're also surrounded by a tremendous number of other departments in all fields. So it's not just neurosurgery, but it extends to pretty much every discipline, genetics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're usually in the top 3 in NIH funding for neurosurgery departments. Other areas that are really helpful for the residents are the R25 program, which was started specifically to help get residents NIH funding and progress them through their careers. There's also the CTSI program, which helps folks get a master's and provides additional NIH funding to support research. There's many other facets that help research along, including grant writing classes, et cetera, et cetera. My area is mainly in open vascular, endovascular. My lab is in the biomedical research building. This is the top floor. In the bottom floor, we have biplane angiography, MRI. We just put in a CT scanner, ultrasound. That's all for large, just for research uses. These are some of my collaborators, and you can see here that aside from neurosurgery, you can find a mentor in really any discipline. So I also collaborate with folks in ophthalmology, vascular surgery, molecular biology, biochemistry, cardiology, genetics, etc. And so I think even if you want to go outside your area and field, there's an extensive number of departments to interact with. We work on a lot of new and developing technologies in endovascular, as well as collaborate with many other scientists, but also have the support of many companies that come in and regularly test things in our laboratory. These are our clinical research studies going. So as you move your translational research through to human research, we have about 15 studies ongoing right now that enroll patients for either endovascular or open vascular type studies. Easy for residents to get involved in, obviously, any facets of these elements. So in a brief summary, research not mandatory includes clinical, translational, or basic science, and I think we have covered all of these extensively. Translational studies also include extensive collaborators in engineering, if that's a track that you want to go down. And pretty much every discipline is represented at University of Miami here. So if there's something that you want to step outside of neurosurgery or bring those elements into neurosurgery, it's quite easy to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashish Shah. He's one of our phenomenal chiefs who's had an extremely productive research year, and we're all excited to see how he progresses in the next phase as an attending soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's a great presentation. Hope you guys are staying with us for all of this. So I want to give a little bit of a background on the resident research opportunities and basically what's going on at the University of Miami to kind of give you an idea. This is our undergrad campus, certainly an area where you can collaborate in the future if you want, as well as the medical campus. Just to give you a background, I cannot stress this enough. Research is an essential pillar of academic neurosurgery here in Miami. This is Lois Pope Life Center. This is basically where where our research enterprise is kind of focused here. Our neurosurgery department has 7 floors of research space here that you can basically take advantage of during your time here as a resident. Not to mention there's several other buildings, which I'll talk about in a little bit, where you can kind of capitalize on our research infrastructure, which is pretty unparalleled, not only in Florida, but I think across the country. So, you know, as you pick any residency program, you kind of look at what's the most important thing if you're interested in research. And I think the most important thing is early exposure and early mentorship to research opportunities. And we have really emphasized this early on in your residency as a PGY 1 and 2. You're kind of this baby here, you know, you're starting off to learn to walk, and you need to identify your research interests, you know, identify mentors. And our R25 program helps you do that. We kind of identify people in the university that are, you know, that gear at your specific research interest. So you can kind of work with them early, identify some specific aims to kind of get your feet wet, so that when you start as a PGY4, you're, you know, really kind of hit the ground running. And this is the kind of time where you're, you know, spent the year as a dedicated research year. You generate your preliminary data, you start to work on manuscripts. This is right before your PGY4 year. You can apply for this R25, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but basically that gives you that salary and that kind of prestige to kind of, you know, get your research started. This is a completely protected year. You're not getting pulled to do cases in the middle of the year. And this is a very unique opportunity that we offer. And so as you finish your PGY4 year and you kind of move on to chief residency, senior residency, where you're publishing your papers, you start identifying grant opportunities for yourself for the future. So when you become a faculty member, you can start to kind of, move yourself forward in that realm as well. And then as you become a PGY7, we have the 6-1 structure, which, Greg and Stephanie and Jason have mentioned, but this is basically a time for you to, engage in elective research opportunities. If you want to do more research in the lab, you can. If you want to do an ex-full fellowship and go somewhere else or stay in the department and do it in full fellowship, you can. And so this is kind of a very nice year. And so as a PGY7, you can even finish up your projects you were doing as a PGY4, and that kind of gives you that gateway to, apply for, an R or a K award as well. And it's important as a PGY7, you can also do an R25 extension and get, basically 50% of your time paid for as well, which is a nice option, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then you kind of get older as you move on to, chairmanship here as you progress. So what is an R25 and why does it exist? So the R25 is basically a program that the NINDS made so they can retain scientists who are also neurosurgeons. Only a few programs have been given R25 status, and we are one of them. And basically it lets you dedicate 1 to 2 years of dedicated research, basic or translational research during your residency, with the goal that you will be ushered into a career as an independent NIH-funded researcher. So this is a very kind of unique opportunity that our program offers, and we have spectacular mentors. As I mentioned, there are only 13 programs in the country that have R25s, and there are like 110 neurosurgery programs, so there's only 10% that have R25s, and out of them, we have one. So these are kind of lists of programs, and I think it's important when you're looking at programs to apply to look at programs that offer you opportunities for research, because you don't, as a medical student, you may not know if you want to stay in academics or private practice, but you need to have all of these opportunities available. Briefly, the R25 offers you money for travel, for administrative support. It gives you a yearly workshop, which is, I think, very, very unique. You're basically in a workshop with all the leaders in neurosurgery who are all physician scientists who basically look at your specific aims individually and kind of give you, critiqued feedback. So this is a very unique opportunity that the R25 gives these programs. At the University of Miami, we have several basically landmark institutes where you can collaborate and do your research in, from human genomics, the Brain Tumor Initiative, the Miami Project, to the CTSI. So all these are opportunities for you to leverage. The mentors in the program, we have about 25 to 30 mentors in our R25 who all have, R01 or equivalent funding, and who have basically had a previous history of mentoring residents and trainees to become physician scientists. So this is a unique opportunity as well. So, I mean, in general, I suggest that, when you're getting early involved in residency, you should be familiar with different funding strategies. As a resident and a fellow, you need to be, aware of the different funding strategies, such as the R25, T32, or private and foundational grants, all of which you have access to at our department. And then basically these will kind of transition you to basically junior faculty grants, such as K awards, and then eventually to R awards. So, in our department, our research paradigm is very successful. I mean, these are just a few of our residents who have NIH funding. I mean, Shelby Burks has an R21 with Dr. Levy doing peripheral nerve research. Me and Ian are both R25 recipients. Stephanie Chen has a foundational grant from the AANS to do research in endovascular and vascular therapies. And Dan Eichberg just got a T32 in surgical oncology, doing some research in Dr. Ivan's lab. So, I mean, this is just proof in the pudding that everything that we do in our research paradigm is successful. And this is what you want to look at as you're looking at a program. You want to say that, okay, well, are these residents getting funding so they can be scientists in the future? And the answer is very clearly here, yes. And then, on top of that, you ask yourself, oh, are we publishing papers? And you can see over the last 10 years, we've published a significant amount of papers, and it's only rising. H-index of all our residents is rising exponentially. On top of that, several of you asked questions about translational research, and I think not only is it important to write grants, to publish papers, but to show that your research is now being translated to patients. Now, these are just 3 clinical trials, all on clinicaltrials.gov, of residents who have kind of initiated this research interest and have moved their research into the clinical realm. And these are 3 different clinical trials going on. This is just a fraction of the stuff going on at the University of Miami, but this is just an example of resident kind of initiated research, and showing you what is possible if you're a resident at our institution. And I guarantee you, not a lot of other programs have this opportunity. So in short, I don't want to bore you guys, but come visit the University of Miami. We have a unique experience that I think that is unparalleled in the country. Our research is only growing. Hopefully, when this COVID outbreak dies down, you can come visit what it is to be part of the University of Miami. I'll now give time to Dr. Komatar. I think he has some question and answers that he was.
All right, great. Thanks, Ashish. I think just while Iggy is loading up my talk, I just want to say thanks to everyone for taking out time on their Saturday. I think it's pretty safe to say this is a very special program. More than just case numbers or the research and stuff, it's really the intangibles that make this place so special. I can tell you as program director, it's an honor, it's a pleasure. It's definitely the best part of my job is to lead this program. I think all the attendings would also support that. I think our residents are the top 1%, and being able to mentor them and guide them and have these, very enthusiastic leaders in the field, it's really the best part of our job. And I think the general gist of this sub-I, I think that the take-home message would be that, residents aren't just here to do the work. They're not just a part of the department. I think the residency is the central part of this department, and the residents are the engine that really make this department run. So really couldn't say enough about how proud we are of our program, and this really is the very best residency program in the country for all the reasons you heard. Iggy, if you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to just talk about, for you guys, what do you need to be looking at a residency program when you guys interview? There's really 3 things you want to look at. You want to look at what the quality of the faculty is. What are the types of cases that they're doing? You want to look at the opportunities to do academics, to grow, and really what's the quality of life. I think Stephanie said it best. This is 7 years of your life. It's a major part of your youth. And you don't want to sacrifice quality of life for quality of training, because there's a lot of excellent programs out there that offer both. Next slide, please. So again, just like Dr. Levy said at the beginning, has, in my opinion, the best faculty in the country. It really has a tremendous amount of volume. Every specialty is covered. Every specialty not only is covered, but you have a senior faculty and a junior faculty. It's very stable, so you're not coming to a program where if someone leaves, it's going to fall apart. This faculty is stable throughout, and even if people were to leave, which I don't see happening, it still would be a very tremendous faculty. So if you could just click that button, Iggy. So anyway, so the result is that everyone who comes here will get the absolute best clinical training when it comes to neurosurgery. Next thing you got to look at are what are the opportunities for academic growth. Again, we're not looking for just people who are going to be surgeons. We want people who are going to be leaders in the field and publish and really push neurosurgery forward. So here you have 2 full years, year 4 and year 7. You can use those as you please, as long as you have a good idea. We're certainly willing to kind of support it. It can either be dedicated research, it can be dedicated fellowships, it can be some kind of combination of both. As you saw, that the research infrastructure is super robust, and really any type of mentorship, any type of project that you want to do, as long as it's well thought out, we are certainly willing to push it ahead. And again, starting day 1, academics and publications are very highly encouraged. So it's not something that's just done during your elective years. It really starts the day that you set foot on campus, and you use those elective years to kind of push ahead. And again, I think the result is that if you look at our graduates, they really become leaders in academic neurosurgery, not just great surgeons, but also leaders in the field. And then finally, quality of life. Again, scut work is minimized. Primary junior call is really condensed down to only 2 years. Lots of ancillary staff to help with that scut work. Obviously, this is a great city. And it's a great environment. And I really can't stress that enough. This is not, it's not like an us versus them mentality. It's not residents versus attendings. Faculty and residents are really family here. And really everyone gets along. I mean, all the residents call me by my first name. They're all friends, they're all family, and it's a great environment to really work in. And so I really don't think you find that in many other top programs. And the result, if you could just press that button, Iggy. So I think that really here, it's the best quality of life possible as a resident. So I guess the next question is, what do we expect out of the applicants? What do we expect out of our residents? One, we want to see passion for the field of neurosurgery. So we don't just want people who are going to come in, do surgery, and leave. We want people who really have a passion for the field, who want to push it forward, and who are working outside the boundaries. So not just surgery, but really advancing the field. Really have to have a pursuit of technical excellence. So number one, you have to graduate being an excellent technical surgeon. And as you saw in all the prior talks, 5,000 plus cases, every specialty covered, without a doubt, you will come out being technically excellent. Again, you really have to be committed to more than just surgery. That's the first pillar, but you also have to do academic achievements. So you have to use those 2 elective years, you know, get grants, do research, do fellowships, you know, be involved in organized neurosurgery, and really push the boundaries of academic neurosurgery. As I said, and as Dr. Morco said, really get involved in organized neurosurgery. That starts again day one, and having faculty here, which is very important to kind of push you ahead, to get you involved early. I think that's critical to becoming an academic neurosurgeon and to landing a top-notch faculty spot. Leadership qualities. So we expect our residents to become leaders, and this is a graduated process. So we expect our residents to, day one, start becoming leaders, and then as they advance through residency, and especially once you're chiefs, I think the chief residents here have so much autonomy, and they really are able to show off those leadership skills. And so again, the end result is that our graduates are leaders in the field, and we want to develop those qualities throughout those 7 years. Collegiality and friendship. So we do not tolerate any malignancy here. I know a lot of other residencies can be very toxic. It's obviously residency is going to be tough enough as it is, but here it's very collegial. It's, everyone's friends and family, and there's certainly no type of toxicity here. And finally, we really want all of our residents to be happy and to be satisfied, not just to be great neurosurgeons. And again, this is what makes Miami the best residency program in the country. There's a lot of programs that do a lot of cases. There's a lot of programs that have the research. There's a lot of programs that kind of produce leaders in the field. But how many of those programs really have residents that are happy and are satisfied? And I can tell you that the residents here have an exceptional quality of life. Everyone works hard, but they play hard, and they're all just have an excellent quality of life. So that's probably our number one goal, is that we want our residents to not only be well trained, but we want to make sure that your 7 years here are ones that you look back upon and that you truly are happy. And again, so just please join us. This is our faculty. I think everyone has my email. You guys all have Ingrid's email. A lot of questions and answers have come through the queue, but if anything comes up, please email us anytime. This is a very special place, and we look forward to hopefully meeting you guys in the future. Look forward to seeing all of your applications come the fall. So again, thanks for your time, and welcome, and ask us questions.
Hello, everyone. Do we have any questions? Anybody has any questions? If you have any questions, please let us know. We're going to be here 2 minutes waiting for any questions you might have. Once again, if you have any questions, please let us know. We're standing by. Okay, if there's no questions, this will end for the day. Thank you for assisting, and you'll have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.